What is up, everybody? It's Dr. Vibe here, host and producer of the award-winning Dr. Vibe Show, the home of Epic Conversations, and I'm the host of Epic Conversations. 2020 Best Podcast News Award winner, 2018 Innovation Award winner given out by the Canadian Ethnic Media Association. I also co-host and co-produce the only online show in the world for dads and fathers that's sponsored by Dove Men Plus Care. And being part of that team since 2020, we've reached out directly and indirectly to over 300,000 fathers around the world. Dads, fathers, and male caregivers. Let me get that complete. And I also am a featured contributor, as I see the numbers go up here, to the Fly Nubian Queen YouTube channel, which is powered by Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. Tagline, where Black women have a voice. And that YouTube channel has 581,000 subscribers. And I'm also, there's this platform called IndieSoup Media. I'll just say I'm a contributor there. It's a platform that has a reach of over 1 million people and 30 plus content contributors. I think you're going to be hearing a little bit more about that in the next few seconds. So this is State of Things with Aisha and Lala. But you know what? I said it wrong. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala. So Aisha, you're laughing at me, but you're on mute. Now you took yourself off.
I know. You said it, I was just like, oh my God, no.
That's okay. I'm human. I make errors.
I know. As soon as I heard you say it, I'm like, I don't think you heard.
No, but I took care of that. No worries. It's so good. When you posted over 5,000 of these, you can make a little bit of an error once in a while. I think I give myself grace. I give myself grace.
A lot of these since 2017. So
yeah. So I give myself grace. What's going on?
Not much. Just trying to make sense of some things that just don't seem to be making sense in this country right now. Number one, Terrence Howard's wig. I'm still upset about.
Don't worry, we're gonna get to that in a minute.
I am still upset. About that. But other than that,
we're gonna get to that in a minute. I didn't think I know about
another earthquake.
Yeah, and also, is it Iran has launched drones on Israel?
Yeah, I'm actually hearing that now. Apparently, they're like slow-moving drones right now.
Yeah,
so they haven't like hit the land yet, but you can see that they're incoming. Yeah. And so, I mean, I've never seen a attack like this that was actually planned, like where they said, okay, we're gonna just drop some drones on you at about 4:58 a.m. Yeah. So beware and just be. I've never seen warfare like that we're like scheduling bomb drops now.
Yeah. No, what can you do? But so for a little bit of background on this show, what we do is we try to, as best as possible, line up conversation topics before we go live. So, because I got a lot of posting and stuff to do, and you said, well, we want to talk about Terrence Howard and the wig in our appetizer. I said, no appetizer for this today. No appetizer for this today. So we're going to get it as a main story. So people say, where's Lala? Well, Lala is touring at the moment.
Yes.
So that is why she's not with us. But we have a special friend, not a guest, a friend that we're going to be bringing up in just a moment, but we just got to do some housekeeping here. Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala at Patreon. There's the link. I'll be sharing it on all the comment sections in just a moment. Also, the show store. There's the link there. Also, join our Discord group. If you want, please email me at dr.vibe@thedrvibeshow.com. And subscribe to the Dr. Vibe Show on YouTube and hit the notification button. Also, you can follow the Dr. Vibe Show and Dr. Vibe on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Actually, I was at a conference yesterday, and I did a little bit of a live, and all these people liked it. Go, should I start going back on IG Live again? I didn't think it was a worthwhile thing, but obviously, for some reason, I should. And then if you want to advertise your platform, if you want to advertise your product, business, or service on any of the platforms that I host, please feel free to email me, dr.at DR. You see, Dr. Tachi's making me nervous. DR period VIBE at the DR VIBESHOW.com. So I let the cat out of the bag. So Lala's not here, but guess who's here? There she is. Friend of the Dr. Vibe Show, friend of Primetime Saturday, friend of everything. Dr. Tachi, how are you?
Oh, fantabulous, as usual. How are the both of you?
Very good.
Blackalicious. And what's the t-shirt say? I love the
Black Panther. It is an official Marvel Black Panther t-shirt.
All right.
So
all right.
What better way to come on than with Black Panther behind me?
No worries. Well, there's so many things that Dr. Tachi does, but her main injury right now is behind something called IndieSoup Media. So it is the last time she was with us, it was in the ideation and getting there. It is now live. So tell people about the live IndieSoup platform.
Oh, I would love to. So, and thank you. So IndieSoup Media is a digital platform. It is an over-the-top or OTT network. It is also a social media network that gathers creators together that have independent work that they want to show. So right now we have, I counted, there are 26 shows.
26, okay.
And not all of them. There are 4 more that still will go live like in May. So right now we have 22 of them that are running. And we run Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday from 4 o'clock, and then Friday from 6 o'clock. So we're a primetime network. So how appropriate is it that I'm on primetimes Saturdays? So yeah, and this coming Monday will be week 4 that we have been on the air.
Fantastic. And this is one of the pieces of content that's going to be on IndieSoup Media.
Correct.
Yes, absolutely.
Are you running a daily like a daily news program? Because I think we need that. We get a few, they stop, they start, but like even just something that 20 minutes, 25 minutes, I guess the standard half hour in TV is 22 minutes, that runs down the news of the day from the Black perspective, from a truly Black perspective. Do you have that? And I'm available.
I was about to say, don't offer if you are going to do it. I'm like, she's trying to give me more work.
We could do some. Okay, we need to talk after the conversation.
Because I'm saying yes. So
okay, so Aisha, I think there's definitely room for that. So we'll talk offline about that, because I think it'd be a great take to have on there. So, and leave it at that. Aisha, Dr. Tachi's here. Like, I'm just going, yes. What else is going on other than the network? Do you have time for anything else?
Yeah, well, I am also one of the contributors to the Kenny Burns Show. If you're familiar with the Kenny Burns Show out of Atlanta, I am one of the correspondents. I do the pop culture segment on Wednesdays. So every Wednesday, and I call it Pop Gumbo. So every Wednesday you can watch Pop Gumbo on the right, because gumbo is a lot of, I guess it's a playoff of soup, right? So it's a lot of really great things that come together, a whole bunch of stuff like a hodgepodge. So so that's been fun, and I do that. They're usually no more than 7 minutes or so, but you can catch them on Kenny Burns, the Kenny Burns Show platforms, also their Instagram, their Facebook, etc., all their social. Also, I put it on my social, and it's running on Fridays on IndieSoup. So
wonderful.
Yeah. Busy lady.
Well, you know what? Little backstory. So Dr. Tachi and I am collaborating with her to get resources for her, because it's a lot running a network. You think just because it's an online network doesn't mean there's resources needed. And I had scheduled a meeting with her and I with an intern earlier this week, and Dr. Tachi is very punctual. He's a very punctual person. And meeting comes and going, Dr. Tachi, where are you? Dr. Tachi, where are you? I'm going, is she okay? So did the meeting, and about an hour and a half after, she was, I fell asleep. I go, that's great. You actually sleep. I was
good. gone asleep when I woke. I was like, "Oh, damn, I forgot." So yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
So
my
I
thing now
said,
is sit down unless I actually have time to sleep.
well, I said that's beautiful that she actually sleeps. So, Dr. Tachi, you are allowed to sleep.
Thank you. Just not during a meeting, so it won't happen again.
Before a meeting and after a meeting, not during a meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I
All
got
right.
to learn how to fall asleep with my eyes open during some meetings a while back because sometimes you just can't help it.
Oh,
Oh,
my
you know what
God.
I'm gonna have to do? I'm gonna have to gift you some shades. So I'm gonna gift you some perfect shades for that.
Okay. All right. Well, I see people want us to get going by the number, so let's get at it. OJ Simpson has left us. What
Yeah.
is OJ Simpson's legacy? Well, the whole thing. So who's gonna start?
Aisha, I yield to you. Go ahead.
Okay, so his legacy, it's like you were talking about a hodgepodge of things before your life. His legacy in his life is a hodgepodge of things. Of course, there are the things that he accomplished as a Black athlete in the 70s and 80s, but remember that his popularity among Black people had begun to wane the more famous he got and started doing like the Naked Gun films and things like that. And he kind of distanced himself from Black culture because I don't think most of you remember, but if I'm not mistaken, wasn't OJ Simpson in Roots? Didn't he play Kunta
Yes,
Yes,
he
Kinte's
was.
he
father?
was. Yes, he was.
Yes, and he did several blaxploitation films, and then after that period, when he started getting mainstream endorsements and things like that, you saw this shift in him, not just as a cultural icon, but this shift in him as a human being. And then there is this tragedy that his life in the early 90s is marred by, because this happens in the shadow of both the Rodney King beating and the trial, the murder of Latasha Harlins, a 15-year-old girl we talked about on our 10 and 10, who had been murdered just around the time of the riots, those acquittals, and don't forget the other case that happened during the riots where the trucker got beaten and those people did get sentenced. And then you have this whole OJ Simpson trial thing. And so that early part of the 90s, 89 to 95, you saw this racial reckoning in America with regard to police brutality. It was kind of like a new civil rights movement for Gen X. And I think in some respects, our vision of OJ Simpson got convoluted with our ideas and expectation of our treatment as Black people in this country. And he became a symbol of that. However, I have always contended that I thought that if he didn't do it, he knew who did. And it was a close personal relative, because DNA does not lie.
Go ahead.
It's always a paradox going after Aisha because she comes with this brilliant assessment of things, and then you're left like trying to put it together so you can follow up. I think here's the thing with OJ Simpson. There are two different things here. He definitely started to distance himself from Black culture. He's not the only one. We've seen this happen many times with celebrities, with athletes, when it's deemed for it to be more profitable and more, quote, comfortable for them to do so. So we've seen this. But I really think that the whole trial marred everything that could have been, and there was no coming back from that. That's what it felt like. It doesn't matter what he would try to do. There was no coming back from that. All we have to do is remember he was prosecuted in the media before the trial even happened. Remember the Time magazine cover where they purposely darkened him to make him more ominous. Now, they can say they didn't do that, but all roads point to that happening. So, apparent. This is what was apparent. So there was already this demonization of him. Now, this doesn't mean necessarily that I was a fan or that I'm excusing or whatever, but there was already a demonization that started of him. And so the trial happened, and he was acquitted. But the quote damage had already been done between sides that were split, and they tended to be split along racial lines. So, as she said, this was like one of the defining things of Gen X's generation. And so now we have an even a wider rift or a wider gap because of that. And then secondly, I think we also have to look at OJ, the man, as an individual. It's only later on that we start to pay attention to what happened to people, football players, during football. When we look at the history of concussions, when we look at behaviors and what has happened, I think that obviously, and I don't know for sure, and it's never been said from what I know, but I think there was a modicum or some of that was involved as well. So there's this whole tossing aside of athletes once they're no longer needed, once you no longer can carry a ball, once you prove yourself too crazy to be useful to society, we toss them aside without very much regard. And simply because he was in the Naked Gun movies, simply because he was doing things, doesn't mean that he was right. Does that make sense? So right. I think there's also this this ignoring that we've done of what has happened in the sports world. But again, it's only after the fact. And I can't remember the doctor's name that started to really pay attention, the Nigerian doctor that really started to pay attention to it. But you could probably go back and look at many football players and look at behavior and wonder if there was something to that because of the multiple hits that they had endured. So that's my thought. Don't know if it makes sense, but those are my thoughts.
Okay. And we have to wonder about whether or not the verdict depended on evidence that the jury was shown. We now know the jury didn't see a whole lot of stuff. Remember, this jury was sequestered for 8 months. So a lot of the things that we saw, they did not see. But also, too, you have to wonder if they had an ultimate burden on their shoulders, because whatever the verdict was, there could have been another riot in an area of California that had just gotten through that. But I think one of the greatest legacy, and we can't lose sight of the fact that 2 people were brutally murdered, 2 kids lost their mother, yes. And now they've lost their father. But I think one of the enduring legacies of that case, specifically the trial, is what we see about to happen here Monday, where we have a former United States president who is going on trial for what this one's like 38 felony counts, and he is trying to try the case in the media. He is really, I have been, it's almost kind of coincidental that these things merged at the same time, because I have been trying to rack my brain around figuring out what is it about this trial that this man is doing that's so familiar. And if we hadn't forgotten, and I probably would have forgotten had OJ not passed, that's what it is. People are going to turn into that like they did their soap operas before OJ Simpson. Because what did little old ladies do when they were at home, retired little old ladies, before the OJ Simpson case was on TV all the time? They watched their soap operas and their game shows. OJ Simpson case comes on, everybody's watching 24/7. This is where you get court TV from, that runs this thing 24/7. Yes. Preempted media. They preempted championship games for this. And so I wonder if we're going to get that kind of coverage in this Trump case coming up. I doubt it, because Judge Ito in California made the decision of making that available to TV. They allowed cameras in.
Don't jump too far ahead. We're going to be talking about that a little bit later. Yeah, so
they allowed. But they allowed cameras in, and that's a decision that had a great impact in terms of how people viewed this case in particular. I think one of the things that was very damaging just in terms of the public eye, was really this relationship you see between Chris Darden and what's the woman's name?
What was the? Oh, I can't.
Marsha Clark.
Marsha
And
Clark.
Marsha
Yes.
Clark. You see their interaction together, but then you also see her interaction towards people. And regardless of the kind of attorney she was, she turned a lot of people off with her attitude and everything. And you could see her evolution, because remember, at first she had this tight little white lady
tight
Jerry
curls.
thing going
Yes.
on. And then by the end, she like had gotten all glammed up, and you see the evolution that she even became aware of how she was looking. They put Mark Furman on without and knowing, they knew the history, because there was this disclosure. If the OJ Simpson side knew about that stuff, clearly the prosecution did, and made a poor decision in terms of bringing him on the stand with there being audio tapes. And so I think a lot of the mistakes and the missteps in this case, and it could have been a convictable case, I think, given all of the things that we now know, and the fact that the man had the nerve to write a book that said, "If I did it." But beside that point, I think a lot of the missteps in terms of getting to that point where there was an acquittal was on the prosecution, because they always have the burden of evidence.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
If we go any further, there are a pile of comments. If I don't get them in now, I'll be so far behind. So
get them in.
Yes, sir. Jen Meyer says, hello, everyone. JJ Mars from Colorado says, good afternoon. Cass Lou, what is up? Look who's here. Pillow Talk with Dr. Boyce and Dr. Alicia Watkins. Hello, my favorite people.
Hello.
Dr. Alicia, just like last time, if you want to come in, just message me in the comments on YouTube. I'll send you the link. Jen Meyer,
we'd love to have her.
Well, Dr. Vibe, hope you're well also. She says yes. Dr. Alicia says yes. Rodney King made us support OJ. What do you think about that point?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that we saw that in injustice. It's just like this. Imagine if we had not been in a pandemic and we had not seen video of George Floyd and just heard about it. This is what this OJ case became, because the Rodney King beating played over and over and over and over and over again. You saw filmmakers. Spike Lee used it in the intro for Malcolm X, the movie. It became part of our cultural lexicon, no different than the Challenger explosion, no different than the JFK shooting. Those things played over and over and over again. And we kind of got that same kind of thing happening after 9/11 too. Remember, for the longest time, they showed the towers coming down. And then they got to a point where, like, wait a second, we had to stop doing this. Notice you don't see that on TV the way that you would before. They barely even show the Challenger explosion, and it was almost 40 years ago, and they still haven't done that. But this was every day, nonstop, consistently being hit with something. And not only that, people became invested in the different characters, which I call them characters, but they were actually witnesses, like Kato Kalin, the hostess that wouldn't go away. And there's that person. There were past girlfriends. Then there's this Kardashian link, which, remember, had it not been for this particular case and their father getting that celebrity from this, we would not have had
Kardashians
that we do now in the infection that they put upon American culture with return in terms of being very entertainment and frivolous. And I think that this is the enduring legacy in terms of how it changed our media. Now, that is for us on the outside. Internally, there are a whole lot of other moving parts. You got to remember, there are two families right now who this really, him dying is really the end of that. And then how do you reconcile that? Because here's the thing, OJ did get found civilly liable. He never went to jail for that. What he went to jail for was breaking and entering.
Exactly.
Okay,
Go figure.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Aisha. I don't want to.
No, I'm done.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
well, I wanted to piggyback off of it, because just as we were invested in the characters, we were also invested in the artifacts, the gloves, the leather gloves, the fact, do they shrink, do that, and then Bruno Mali. Remember the fact that
Yeah.
he had on Bruno Mali shoes, and that was, if it was in today's world with Google and internet searches, Bruno Mali probably would have been one of the most searched shoe brands. But that's all you kept hearing. You kept hearing about a lot. Okay, the white Bronco. So there are these artifacts that were also connected to this that became part of, I mean, sad to say, but did become part of popular culture because of that. And then to speak to the whole thing of Rodney King, absolutely. So it absolutely heightened our awareness of the fact, you know how sometimes as melanated folk, you know, somebody is not 100% right or correct in what they thought, said, or did, but because they are melanated, you will support them. I'm not one that always that does that. Because
Candace
because
Owens
if you're
comes to
wrong,
mind
you're
as
wrong.
someone that I don't.
She is the example, I think, of that. Just because she is doesn't mean I'm in support of that. So it's not blanket in every case, but for some of us, it is blanket in every case. You don't, if they are melanated, you support regardless. So that's all we needed, I think, to see, to be on the, we didn't, some of us did not look at facts. Some of us did not think it through. It doesn't matter. He's melanated. We're on his side. And I understand why that happens, because when you're in a society that tells you because you are melanated, you are always wrong, you tend to go the other way and overboard to protect. So I get where it comes from. It's not always good to do, but I get where it comes from. And so the other thing about that is that was the marker of the age of us living in public. If it started in the civil rights movement, where we saw news footage of children being hosed down with water hoses by the fire department, of them being bitten by dogs, if it started then, it really evolved with Rodney King, because again, those were professional news crews that were doing this. Right. This was really the first time that the average person on the street, the average Joe on the street, picked up a camera and recorded what was happening. That was the beginning of us.
He didn't even intend to do it. It just, he left the camera
He didn't
on,
intend.
Pointed there
exactly.
and happened to find it. But you know what else? The other part that's also wrapped up into this too, and why, and the belief of, like what you were saying about, well, you know, we're always told we're wrong. So, you know, we have this innate desire to protect ourselves. That becomes a protection mechanism. But the other thing that was going on at the time, not just the Rodney King and these other things, Michael Jackson, our youth was kind of like coming apart, because Michael Jackson around that time was being charged with harming children. So there was this it was a very unique period in popular American culture and how Black representation was seeing itself, particularly in the 90s. And then on top of that, you know, we're OJ Simpson, this case happens, and then we're a year out from losing Tupac and Biggie. And so this period, this Gen X group that, you know, came into their own in their teens and early 20s in this period, underwent a substantial amount of just trial and tribulations with regard to how we view those people who are viewed as icons in our culture. And then here we are at middle age, and we're realizing how much of them are gone by middle age, right? And that the time passes so fast, because it doesn't feel like there was 32, that this happened like 30 some odd years ago, right? It doesn't feel like it at all. And then you think about it and you're like, I see exactly the line directly through from that to this, and to here we are right now, where we have someone who basically turned the presidency into a reality show. Donald Trump did during the pandemic, those 4:30 press briefing meetings of his. He did exactly what we saw being done with the news media during the OJ Simpson trials, was that every day at a certain point in time, there was this extensive amount of coverage. If you all remember during the pandemic, all of our cable news, the same way that they covered the OJ trial, covered the pandemic. I mean, it was 24/7, even though we knew other things were going on in the world, but it was 24/7. And I don't think that people talk about how 9/11 changed the news cycle, but I honestly believe that particular case changed the news cycle.
All right, let me jump back in again because comments got to catch up. JJ Marsh says things are good here. Hope the same in Toronto. So that means things are good in Colorado. Caslu says blessed Saturday. Ryan Allardyce, who was an intern who was doing a lot of editing on this show for a while and actually just picked up an award from his school, says great to show on the show, Dr. Tachi. I remember when the verdict was read, I was at my work and many whites and some Hispanics are mad. We're going to get to that in just a second. Ryan says, I am great. He says, hello back to Dr. Tachi. Caslu says, talk about entitlement and privilege along with entertainment over democracy, liberty, and justice. Just saying.
Yes.
Fitness IQ says, good evening. ICU says, we all know who needs to be prosecuted, the whole system. And JJ Mars says, after 92 riots, LAPD installed a black police chief, which was weak and feeble attempt to reform the department. But LAPD is even more bigoted and corrupt today. So let's go back. Go ahead. No, let's go back.
That convolution, that the conflation of power and entertainment with democracy, justice, and system. Nobody got an OJ. Look, nobody got an OJ check when OJ won. I mean, and let's be very clear. Would he have not gotten the same kind of attention had he not been a celebrity?
Well,
if he had just been Orenthal Jones.
Yeah. Okay.
No, it would have been done after the next news cycle.
Okay. So two questions. This one's gonna be second one. Did you watch the White Bronco incident live?
I mean, I watched it when it was happening. It felt like it was forever because I know I left my house when it started, went to the grocery store because I had a boyfriend who worked at the grocery store that day to ask him if he had seen what was going on, went back home and it was still going on. So it felt like it took all day. Like they were just, and that is the allowance of elitism and entertainment and privilege, whether you're black or white. It's the privilege of money, right? Because I don't know what stream of police officers is going to follow some black guy who just murdered two white people and allow him a good half a mile distance between him and not come down with a SWAT team. I expect, honestly, I don't understand why. If it was a regular person, it would have been like that Queen Latifah scene at the end of Set It Off with all those police cars and everybody around her and just riddle her body with bullets. That's what I would have expected. That's what we would have seen. Hell, that's what we would have seen on January 6th if it had been black people, okay? But he got that privilege. Also, too, the police, like someone said earlier, like I think it was JJ said, about the corruption of the police in LAPD at the time. They were very much aware that all cameras were on them and that they were being televised. The last thing they wanted was another black eye like they got with the Rodney King thing and having their officers, because remember, those were officers that had beat Rodney King. The last thing they wanted was to be caught on all these cameras, helicopters, everything, being caught beating or killing someone who is believed to be an American hero.
Dr. Tachi, did you watch the White Bronco incident live?
I did. It's interesting because at the time I was in the student union and I was always the president of everything for some reason. And at that time, I happened to be the president of the NAACP on campus. So I remember that they had this thing that they would always do in the student association office. If something was going on, they would turn on the TV so we could watch. So I walked in and I was like, what is going on? And so they explained. And so I just remember how long it was, because at that point I was like, okay, well, I'm going home. Went home and it was still on, right? It was, it seemed like it took forever. So I do remember watching that live. They also had the trial playing live on campus so that everybody could see. And it was polarizing, to say the least. And I know it's for informational purposes. Obviously, we should know what's going on. But even at that time, I was like, is it really necessary for us to know? At this point, it's a criminal trial. We
Right.
don't have eyes into other criminal trials. Why is this one so important? And of course, I know why, but I'm like, there are other things that are not being covered that we don't know about when the media decides to make this their business.
Right.
Talk about it, yes, but move on from it so that we could get some other things. So there's a media agenda. Obviously, every media outlet has their agenda or their slant, as you know. And the thing is, everybody wants that story. This was a big story, so everybody wanted it. But at some point, you have to understand, as a media outlet, when you are pushing a narrative forward rather than just covering news. And at this point, it felt like it was pushing a narrative forward.
Only one thing took it off the news. 2 weeks later, the verdict came down on October 3rd, 95. The only one thing took it off the news for 2 weeks, and that was because that was born out of white fear, was the Million Man March in DC.
Yes.
In 95.
Yes.
And people were anticipating that because of this verdict, there might be something might pop off. And so they ended up having more security than what they needed. It was a peaceful organization, peaceful demonstration. And ever since groups have been trying to replicate it, the Million Man March, the Million Mom March, the March for Our Lives. And people have been trying to recreate
Million Women March.
Million Women March. Yeah, people have been trying to recreate that since. And that, for that to be the only thing, I think, to take it off, like take that spotlight off that case for a while, but it didn't turn out the way that people thought it was going to, I think was something that for Black people showed the resolve that, look, you know what, it's not all of us. Okay, we've got other things to do. We're here fighting this fight, and I think by that point, 2 weeks later, we had gotten tired of it. And it's like that was OJ's fight. This right here is our fight, and so that focus was quick to shift because, I mean, everything was strategic. It's a court case. Everything was strategic on his end in terms of the attorneys that he got. Okay, down to who gave the closing arguments. The biggest mistake that Marshall Clark and Chris Darden made was sitting there and watching as Johnny Cochran had him try those gloves on. That was it. And Johnny Cochran spoke in such phrases that people remembered things. Okay? No one forgot.
If it doesn't fit, you must acquit.
No one has forgotten that. But I don't remember a daggone thing that Marshall Clark said about the droplets of blood that they found that were matched his DNA and the hair fibers that matched him. I don't remember what she said about any of that because it was too technical. And I think this is, and we're going to talk about it later, but this is the kind of showmanship in a trial that we should expect to see Donald Trump and his team trying to do and trying to get away with it, because OJ Simpson's team knew they had to play that in the courtroom, but they also had to play it to the court of public opinion. Donald Trump wants to play his cases to the court of public opinion because that is the court that's going to elicit votes, which will keep him literally out of court.
All right, let me ask. We talked about the Bronco. Where were you when the OJ verdict was read? And what was the reaction around you?
I was in my dorm room getting ready for class.
I think I was on campus. And I said, you know what, let me go home because I don't feel like seeing what's going to happen here. Not that anything did happen, but again, things were already so polarized. And believe it or not, the University of Buffalo was a very racially polarized place. So I was like, you know what, I don't feel like dealing with this today. I'm going home. So as soon as I knew that I was at home, but they were getting ready to come up with the verdict when I was there. So I rushed home and I was at home. So,
well,
I know that after hearing the verdict on my way home, I was at campus getting dressed for class, and I was going to go home to visit my mom. And I remember hearing a racial slur being thrown at me quite often that day.
Wow. Well, for myself at the time, I was working at a major apparel and footwear company, won't give their name. I was the second African Canadian to be hired in their inside office. And I remember I was in the workout room that afternoon. And again, I was the only melanated person in the workout room. And when the verdict was read, one of the employees, an Italian lady, I remember her name to this day, but I ain't gonna say it. She started cursing about the verdict. And I just said, you know what? I think my workout's done. And it was interesting because I think she was looking for a response from me. I said, you know what? I ain't going there. I ain't going there. I just
But you know what? Sorry to interrupt you, but here's the thing. For all intents and purposes, that's something that should have been, it's an interesting thing, but it's an American fight. You all are in Canada. So you would think, well, why is this such a thing? And it shows how race really plays across borders. If you're that angry about something that is really an American murder trial or murder case, it really shows how big of a role race played there. That to me doesn't make any sense.
And you know, the ironic thing too is, like, think about this. Phil Spector, music producer in the 60s, produced a lot of songs that we know, murdered a woman in his house. And that trial did not get, and this was recent, and that trial did not get the kind of coverage that OJ Simpson's trial got. There's something, and because Phil Spector is white, the woman he killed was white. There's something sensationalistic about racial disconnect that the media really loves. Remember, we forget that the news media at the time, the corporate media was starting to really take over. You still had, up until that time, the local radio stations that were local and independently owned, but you're starting to see CNN was trash back then until these things started happening, and then you see them starting to build up and change how they cover things. Same with MSNBC. All of these news media, these cable news media entities began to really shift and change how they did their programming. It was no longer just straight news all day, every day. They started to have shows where people would analyze, they called this person in, start to analyze evidence and learn about experience, and have a pundit talk about what's going to be the political impact. How is this going to affect the rest of the world? What's the Black perspective? What's the white perspective? What's the perspective on domestic violence? Let's not forget about this one innocent man who had nothing to really do with either OJ or his ex-wife, and he gets caught up in this, and how do we do with that? And it really changed our media, how we consume it and how it's presented, because now there's a formula that a lot of these shows cover. You look at the Primetime, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, I don't care who, they have a Primetime lineup, and the Primetime lineup goes by a formula. They have their topics that they cover. They bring in their special guests to analyze it and give context and perspective. They try to postulate how this will impact in the future. The future happens, and then they do a retrospect and look back and talk about how we got here from there. And it's been the same ever since.
And if I could add to that, I think you're absolutely right. These the cable news networks were rubbish, and I think they saw cases like OJ Simpson, some of these other things, as opportunities to widen the thing that they were looking for, the respect that ABC Evening News, the CBS News, the major network news programs got, but they were dealing with a much bigger animal because they were 24/7 news. So whereas we only had the evening news, the national news at 6 p.m., right, on the East Coast anyway, they had to deal with this all day. So I think that's when they came to the realization we can really look at things as tandem and adjacent to the main news broadcasts. And that,
right. How do we make this entertaining?
Right, exactly, because it's about ratings too. I think people need to realize that all of this is about ratings. The news is not trying to be your friend
Right.
because for most people, or for most news outlets, I should say, they're being funded because of advertising, and advertisers do not advertise next to news programs that don't have good ratings. So sometimes this is another whole reason for the whole OJ thing. It's ratings. It is ratings.
Yeah.
So besides the
Yeah.
fact that it's somebody's life, this was good TV.
Right. And the
Just
part
like
about the
like
ratings,
Prime now.
right. And the part about the ratings is true because remember before you would only get people like Schwab and Hartford, the Hartford insurance people who would be the ones
Yes.
to advertise on the cable news networks. Now you get Target, okay, and every other medication that you could possibly imagine every 5 minutes is advertising.
Exactly.
Clorox. I get to, you
Yes.
see all the different things, right? On
Yes.
the news networks now, and that it's to a point where they struggle to fit in the commercials because
Right.
the drama of the news day is
I'm going to bring it back in here because we got other things to chat about. So, final 60 seconds each. What is the legacy for America when it comes to OJ Simpson? What is impact? How does it still have impact in America today? Aisha.
The case itself, I think the greatest impact is of the people who are directly affected, those families. It has a different impact on them than it will on the rest of America. I think for the rest of us, it just serves to remind us the kind of hole that we've gone down. I think even though there was a little bit of reality TV going on, I think without the OJ Simpson trial, the struggle, the stranglehold reality TV, particularly if it's news, has on us as a country. I think that's the legacy of it.
Dr. Tachi?
The legacy, of course, is the trial. Once the trial happened, that was it. That's all. Nobody seems to really remember or care that there was an OJ before this trial. It speaks to the disposability. That's not a word, but I'm making it one. It speaks to the
You're
disposability.
good at that, by the way.
I am good at that. I like making up words. It speaks to the disposability of individuals once they are no longer wanted or valued in society. I mean, aside from the murder trial, right? Aside from that, that is his legacy. There's nothing else. Not Heisman Trophy winner. Did he win a Heisman Trophy? Am I correct?
Yes, he did.
Okay. Not Heisman Trophy winner, not football player, not actor or, contributing actor. OJ that was on trial for murder. That's going to be the legacy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'll just close that with a few other things. I think that it shows probably one of the first times in current history how someone that was basically pushed away by many melanated people, they brought him back. They loved him again after that. Try to say, hey, we support him. We can relate to him, etc., etc. Also, the lingering things of Johnny Cochran. Johnny Cochran was a master piece of that. So R.I.P. to Johnny Cochran. I think, and it's funny. There's a whole group of people that are much younger than us that never lived through this. And it'd be interesting. Will we ever see another spectacle racially, like the impact O.J. Simpson, his trial had back in his day?
I think so. I think well, if you watched, remember too, the George Floyd trials were on TV. Did it have the same extent of this? No. And the reason being because people weren't going out their homes. That's the first thing. Because remember, when OJ happened, people were leaving their homes to go watch that Bronco chase. I remember seeing an overpass and somebody let the juice flow on a sheet that they were dangling over the thing. So I think we were in our houses at that time, but also too the addition of celebrity being part of that. It would have to be,
and how melanated people flock to their celebrities.
Right. It would have to be.
They flock.
Yeah, it would have to be. But remember too, it wasn't it wasn't just about melanated people flocking to celebrities. Remember, he was a big, big, big celebrity to white people.
Yeah,
and that is why it got the attention it did. Because if he was just a celebrity among us, I mean, can you imagine at the time? Like I'm trying to think at the time, say like Sinbad or somebody had done something like this, would it have been covered the same way? No, this was OJ Simpson, who white people had invited to their homes. They,
Hertz rental cars through the airports, hurdling in the airports, hurdling seats in the airport.
So yeah.
Last word finally on this, Dr. Tachi. Anything you want to
add? Yeah, this is the thing. Obviously, this was a big thing because he was a beloved icon, as you said, Aisha, by non-melanated people. That was a big thing. If it was somebody, that is famous to us but not famous, they would be like, who is that, right? So that was another reason. He was somebody that was very recognizable and an icon to non-melanated people, therefore an icon to everybody, supposedly.
Right.
But also, I was thinking about how this case mirrored. Aisha, I know you know this. Remember the Fatty Arbuckle case from, was it the 1920s?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of has the same thing. So for people who don't know, Fatty Arbuckle was like a comedian and actor in the 1920s. And he had a party at his home and somebody ended up getting unalived. And so he was accused of it. Of course, it was not him. It came back that it wasn't him, but of course, it completely shattered and tarnished his image, his career, everything. So the media, this shows even back then, and this was in the newspapers, this shows that the media has always gravitated towards these types of stories when it comes to someone who is famous. If it was somebody else that this had happened to in New York, it probably wouldn't have done either, but Fatty Arbuckle. So I thought that immediately at the time when this has happened, because obviously I was in school, I was studying this stuff. Right. So it reminded me of that.
Okay. All right.
And I think the comparisons that people want to make between OJ Simpson and Emmett Till, I think, are misplaced. When you want to look at this in terms of relations, if you look at Jack Johnson and OJ Simpson, I think is a closer portrayal to this happening. Remember Chuck Berry, him having to go to jail for a little while because he had relations with a white woman in the South. And they thought that she was too young or unconsensual or whatever. Those I think are similar cases. So will we see this again? Yeah, we'll see it again. Will it be to that extent? No. And I think it's just that it was a sign of the times.
All right. So some comments before we go to break. Remember when 45 had the show The Apprentice?
What do you mean had? Still did.
His whole presidency was The Apprentice.
Juice is the best football player that ever did it. Buffalo Bills should have a tribute. R.I.P. Juice. Interesting enough, where he went to university, USC, had no comments. Regina Ferris. I remember walking on a quote back to prison unquote party for a client minutes before the verdict was real. Weird situation. The jury did the right thing, though. Much reasonable doubt in that trial. JJ Mar says Ford Bronco chase was broadcasting live on all major networks. It was right across the board. And Council says, yes, recall the Bronco situation. Regina says the Bronco chase was bizarre. Not in today's world, it wouldn't be. It'd be like commonplace. JG Mar says, before OJ got in all this trouble, I had a friend who loves skiing. He ran to OJ in Vail or Aspen. There were only 2 black people there. He said treated him bad after asking to get a photo shoot, but he was very friendly to all the white skiers. Regina says, my friend covered the trial for CNN, and she said Marsha and OJ had mad chemistry in the courtroom. I have no idea if that was true, though. Also here, Kasu says the trial, yes, the media has also highlighted the fact that he had everyone sign a NDA before his last days. Oh, interesting.
She was doesn't necessarily go with you though when you die.
Yeah, and then she goes, I guess he's talking, she was a bit nuts. One of our colleagues later stabbed her. It was national news. Was that Marsha Clark you're talking about?
No, she's talking about the reporter.
Okay. All right. All right.
I'm wondering if it's that reporter that she's talking about where the guy stabbed the reporter and the cameraman, because that had made national news and he just went up to them.
I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, OJ, rest in peace. Others would say rest in power. Other people say just rest. So we're gonna take a little break in live, a very active first hour of Primetime Saturday with Aisha and Lala with special guest Dr. Tachi. We will be back in 2 minutes after we take a break.
And that's what I feel like. You feel like you're the Harry Tubman of the mind.
I am.
I feel like I'm I'm one of the Harry Tubmans of intelligent Black people. Like, I want to liberate y'all from like being left behind and ignored and oblivion. No, really, the rappers get all the attention. Seriously, does anybody else feel this way? Like ignorant Black people, they'll be all up, getting all the headlines on the Shade Room.
Overly sexualized Black folks.
Like the twerkers and the just people that don't always represent the best of us. The diversity. Like people like Dr. Vibe. Like everybody should know about people like Dr. Vibe. Dr.
Really
Vibe he's trying to do good work for Black people. Dr. Vibe from Toronto. Good to see you, my brother. Dr. Vibe. Everybody follow Dr. Vibe. He has a great show. He's very good at what he does, and I have a lot of respect for him. The men who are also doing the same thing. I see Dr. Vibe in here. He's a great brother. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. He's a smart brother in Canada, and we need to follow smart people. So follow Dr. Vibe. If you see him in the chat, and Dr. Vibe, say your name in the chat so people can see you. I want you to click on his name, and I want you to go follow him, please, because I want these men and women that are doing the right things to get the support they deserve. Hey, Dr. Vibe, how you doing, brother? Again, like I always do, I got to say everybody should go follow Dr. Vibe. He's got a great show. Dr. Vibe, I know Dr. Vibe's got a kingdom because I see your channel. I see you pouring into that every day. Everybody should follow Dr. Vibe, by the way. Look him up, Dr. Vibe, V-I-B-E. He's a great friend of me and my wife, and I love this guy. Okay, so let me hop into this. What's up, Dr. Vibe? How you doing? Everybody, if you see Dr. Vibe in the chat, everybody go follow the Dr. Vibe show. Dr. Vibe is a real smart brother and a good human being. I like the guy a lot, and he's very intelligent. And I think everyone should pay attention to what he's got going on. We got to shine the spotlight on the intelligent Black people out here that are really doing the good work. Don't just pay attention to the rappers and the celebrities. A lot of these people are losers. Your true winners are your people in your community that are really having your back. Helping us to have stronger families and a stronger community. So Dr. Vibe is in that category. So you might see the Dr. Vibe show in this chat. If you see him, please go follow him. Okay. All right. So anyway.
All right, we are back, and we did need to take a break. That was quite the first few minutes of the conversation. I think we need to take a break. And Regina says Cindy Glozier and Ronnie Ricketts, December of 2011.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. All right. Believe it or not, there's more than just OJ's passing away going on, especially in the United States of America. So next up, the thing that Aisha wanted to talk about at the beginning, but no, we're going to land on it now. Terrence Howard claims he's owed $120 million from CAA, which is Creative Arts Agency, quote, based on what we would have been paid for to white counterparts. Both you are content creators, both you people follow the Hollywood scene. Who wants to chat first?
I mean, I didn't even get that from the interview because I was too busy focused on whatever that was on top of his head. I could not. He was not being very serious. Okay. And that reporter, I swear to God, that's not the picture. Let's be honest. Let's show the real thing. Because
I don't know. I'll try to find it.
He looked like James Brown as Annie. Remember when Eddie Murphy performed as James Brown with the red wig doing Annie? That was him. Yes. I mean, I was like, it gave Charlie's Angels. He looked like the son of Shaft, Superfly, everything. Because it would have been different. He would have been like, yeah, I'm in my role for this. But he was very serious in terms of what he looked like. Now that I understand this is the thing that he's owed this based on what he should have made and he should have been paid. Terrence Howard, though, I have to say, he's a good actor, but he hasn't been putting in those roles. And there's a double-edged sword for that, right? On one hand, it is the amount of what's offered to Black actors, the lack of content that there are, the lack of pay, the investment that the studios won't make in Black projects because they assume that Black people aren't going to spend money. They made that movie, the Society of Magical Negroes, and thought that would be okay, but are still struggling to finance my friend's film on the life of Tammy Terrell and Marvin Gaye.
There's your picture.
That's it. That's the one. He looks like the Cowardly Lion. Like he should be on the Wiz, the revamp of the Wiz that's on Broadway now. He looks like the lion from the 1978 movie.
I'm a mean old lion.
Yes, like J.J. Mars said, look like a pimp called Sweetback. Yes.
Yeah. But wasn't he in I don't know, apparently I was reading on Complex that he was like in character for one of the roles that he has coming up. Isn't that correct? I don't know.
He should have explained that, because he had to know that it was going to be distracting. If you're going to have a serious conversation about, like, for example, we'll take his former co-star, Taraji P. Henson, when she went out and was talking about the money that she was making. I mean, she didn't look like one of the poisonous poppies from the Wiz. She didn't. Let's be very clear. She went in there looking real, looking like she was going to have a serious conversation. I can't take that man seriously like that, despite what he was saying. It's like that headline is the headline. Terrence Howard in his feathered wig detail allegations, and that whole article talked about Terrence Howard in his wig. It just kept saying Terrence Howard in his wig. He was giving not just Charlie's Angels, but it was like, I have no words. I just can't. I now that I know what he was talking about, I get it. And he was making some valid points. But I've got to say, as far as an actor, I haven't seen Terrence Howard in any role that I think is Oscar or Emmy worthy, despite the fact that he got high praises for Hustle and Flow. I didn't care for it.
He's an amazing actor. I think that's the paradox of Hollywood. First of all, thinking that you are going to win in a game that was designed for you not to even play. I don't know what to say. He had a lot of valid points. Absolutely. And there are a lot of points that many Black actors have been making in Hollywood and about the industry in general, not just Hollywood, the creative industry, also the media industries and the news, etc. So across the media industries, these are arguments that have been made. But I also think at some point, and this does not mean that we should not participate in mainstream media and expect equity. We absolutely should. But we've been doing this for donkey years at this point, and very little changes. And we're still talking about the same game. So this is just my thinking, and perhaps I'm the daft one here. If that game is one that you will never win, stop expecting to get the victor spoils. Does that make sense? And I know it's reductive. It's reductive in terms of the thinking, and we should expect and demand what we are owed. But I just think there are enough people, enough of us to get together to actually make something happen if we wanted to do that, rather than begging another entity for what we think we're owed when we know what we are worth. It's senseless at this point. He does have a point, though, but at what point do we stop begging?
And the problem is that if we're going to do it and do something about it ourselves, particularly in America, then we need to do it now. Because anytime lately, now that DEI has become such a trash word to white people, anything that we try to do now to uplift ourselves, finance ourselves, and fund ourselves, they're taking us to court for, to say that it's not fair, it's not right. So if we're going to do something about it, we've got to move on it before they outlaw it.
Yeah, that's
okay. Well, you know what? Let me jump in here.
Jump in.
My thought process is, you know what? it's the cards are stacked on one side of the table. So to expect to be valued, that's a good wish. There's nothing written in the law that you're going to get compensated. These are privately owned ventures, so they pay you what they think you're worth. Just like when you go to the job, they pay you what they think you're worth. If you're not happy with it, either you accept it, or complain about it. But as Dr. Tachi said, why aren't we building our own?
Yeah, I mean,
and I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I mean that it seems so easy. It's such a simple solution. Let's build our own. The only problem that we're starting to have now, like I said, is that we're seeing that when we do build our own, we create our own scholarships, when we create our own funds to help Black women start businesses, we're getting sued left and right, and then those funds and things are being held up. So we've got to be more diligent and more creative about this. And the thing is, if we have to decide, we're going to take a stand. Are we going to just demand on one hand that, okay, they hurry up and make equity, or that when we create equity for ourselves, how are we going to fight that? And it's like splitting us down the middle, I think, because we have to fight two fights that our white counterparts do not.
Well, the thing
They don't
is,
have to fight at all.
What's being done isn't getting us anywhere, so we got to try something different.
Yeah, exactly. But we have been socialized to aspire to work for certain entities. All we have to do is just look at entertainment and look at look at entertainment on a basic level. I remember going to a pitch summit, right, where in Atlanta, and everybody was there and gathered around, because it was entities like BET, etc. So they had a lot of people there, but I didn't hear anybody talk about, you know what, let's get together because there are a lot of us. Let's see if we can produce this, put it, throw it on YouTube or something like that. But for people that are socialized to think that Hollywood is the end all and be all, no, they never think, let's get together and do it ourselves. They're always trying to aspire to what they think is where the grass is greener, where the ice is colder. So we haven't been socialized to do for self. We've always been socialized to be part of somebody else's machine. Not that is an excuse. It's not, because at some point you have to know that the machine is broken, and you will only make what the machine thinks you are worth, not what you're actually worth. But that's an uphill battle to get all melanated people on that bandwagon, because like Aisha said, we're split when it comes to that. Go ahead, Aisha.
But it can be done because we've got three examples in our history where it's been done. People forget that Motown Records was an independently distributed company until Berry Gordy sold it in the late 80s. Okay, prior to that, it was fully funded by the acts themselves and the Gordy family. They didn't have a distribution deal with Arista or any of the other big ones. The other thing is Kathy Hughes, with what she's done with TV One and Radio One. She's another person in this space who has started buying small radio stations and building that up. And then was Robert Johnson, the founder of BET, the original founder of BET, starting with a part-time channel like what you do with IndieSoup Media, starting there with that part-time channel that came on between this hour and this hour every night, until the point that it started getting picked up in other places, and then expanding to a full one channel. And remember, that remained independently owned until he was ready to be done with it and sold it. And I think that is the lesson in all of this for us, is that with the exception of Kathy Hughes, all of the others have been sold at some point. So when we build these things up for ourselves and we have them and they do become successful, we have to do a level of gatekeeping that we don't see people who are non-melanated have to do about their culture and their entities.
I'll just add two comments, and I think interesting. Here's a perfect example. Oprah with her network own. She didn't own it for a long time. She got rid of it. And I think it's all about, are we willing to play the long game?
You know, and here's the thing, because I'm kind of torn with that. I think, and this is not just media, this is Black businesses in general. We've seen a lot of this in the hair care space with women and people who entity, they're all men, with people who have owned hair care
Carl's
lines.
daughter, for one.
Yes, exactly. Shea Moisture, Carol's daughter, like you said. Miel is another one where eventually they end up selling to larger entities. I think Carol's daughter is L'Oreal, and etc. I'm torn, because on one thing, I do see it about legacy and us having our own, but on the other hand, nobody holds non-melanated people to the fire when they sell, and they sell all the time. Sometimes you're a human, you're just tired and you want to do something else, so you're selling it, but then when you do, people are, oh, well, you shouldn't sell because you're Black, and we need more Black businesses. Which, are you going to buy all these tubs of curl cream so that I can stay afloat? So I think sometimes we don't look at the other end of it. So the same thing, bringing this now back to media, it's difficult because you want these things to stay Black owned, but at the same time, people are human, because it's then, it's the whole magical Negro thing, right? Or the fact that we're somehow magical and can go like Energizer bunnies forever without taking a break. But that's not the same thing that's expected of non-melanated businesses. So it's a paradox.
And then we've got to be careful too, because once we sell those entities and decide we want them back, because the culture requires it, they make it 3 times as hard. There is no reason as to why Byron Allen wanting to buy BET, then placing a dollar value on it that is 3 times the amount of what it should be, period, just because he wants it back and for it to be Black owned. Because he bought the Griot News Channel, which does very little news, from the Black News Channel, and then evolved that. But now he wants to move into taking over BET. Because remember what comes with BET, buying BET. BET comes with BET Her. It comes with BET Jams. It's become an umbrella. There's all of those things. There's the BET Awards. There's BET Honors. There's the Soul Train Awards, which fall under BET umbrella now. So they make it things that we created, and that are the reason that a lot of us are where we are, particularly creators. They want to parse our own culture back and sell it to us for a value that they know that had we not put ourselves into it, they never would have been able to reach that price. And then they make it very difficult. As far as I'm concerned, if you don't want Byron Allen and his conglomerate of Black men, which I'm upset he has no women, but his conglomerate of Black men to buy BET, stop making it hard. Just sell it. If you don't want them to buy it, say you don't want to sell it. It's as easy as that.
They're too cowardly. They would never do that, and they don't know what to do with BET. If you looked at BET now, it's a complete mess. It is shambles. The programming is rubbish. There is very little of value. I remember back in the early days, like when it was still independently owned, it was still in DC. It was like down the street from Howard, so we were always at BET in the audience. Our Voices with Bev Smith, Teen Summit. We were always there because it was like homegrown. It was like right down the street from Howard. So it absolutely made sense. It felt like it was part of the community, right? But then, of course, you start to see things change. Like, okay, Carol's daughter, this thing doesn't work as well anymore because L'Oreal took it over. And now they're trying to make it cost effective for them. So they load it with all sorts of things that they've changed the formula. The same thing happened with BET. And so they're attempting to try and bring some programming. But if you look at the quality of it, and again, quality is subjective. No disrespect to anybody on any of the shows or anybody running those shows, but it's not what the quality of what it was or what it used to be. So
Yeah.
Byron Allen to actually do something with that channel, it's going to take a lot of money. So maybe this was a blessing in disguise. Better to use that kind of money to build something that is actually going to be salient than to take over a channel that, in my opinion, has very little value at this point.
I mean, the best, it's sad to say it because we're oversaturated with TV and things nowadays, but honestly, BET at its best was really when it only had Video Soul, Video Vibrations, Video LP, and the BET Nightly News, and then it would rerun things like That's My Mama and Amen, Amen, and all those old 70 shows. I mean, you knew what you were getting, right? But it was still reflective of Black culture in those parts of it. Now, I don't recognize any of these shows that I'm seeing nowadays because they feed too much. You like to watch a drama to see a story unfold, but when there's drama in the drama, it's like, oh my gosh, does every character have to have so much drama going on in their lives in every show that has Black people? Can't we
Are you talking to Tyler Perry?
Yes, I am, sir. Sir Perry, I'm talking to you. I mean, can't we just have people who like do? That's why I like Blackish. Okay, like their things happened, but they had lives. They're the figuring out of, okay, how are we going to juggle this with these kids? And it's like, oh my gosh, Tyler Perry shows. Well, the president is married to this Black woman, and this Black woman, they have this secret, and this person's having the relationship with this, and it's like, I can't.
And you know what? This is not to say that there is not room in the space for that.
Yeah.
I am there. There's room for all of it. There is room for the Tyler Perry because obviously he's gotten to this point because he's got an audience. He's got followers. So he's gotten to this point. The problem is there is too little that is counter narrative to that for us to consume. And I think that's where the issue lies. But, Tyler Perry absolutely deserves to be in the space. The things that he's done right now, he owns the largest set of studios in the country, probably North America, if I'm not mistaken. So that's 300 acres. That's nothing to sneeze at. That's amazing, and I love what he's done with that, because that also creates wealth because you rent out those things too for people. I mean, that's amazing. But at the same time, you can't write everything yourself, Mr. Perry, and your idea of what a millennial woman is like, I don't know, because I would watch, like Sisters for. I'm like, oh,
that makes sense.
That's not how millennial.
All right, let me jump in.
I have to say this. This is one thing that BET probably should do that I think would help it. And I've been tossing this idea around in my head. BET, bring back A Different World. Dwayne and Whitley's kid right now would be 30 some odd years old, where they could be a professor at Hillman. You still have those same characters from before coming in, because when Black people graduate from HBCUs, they're more likely to stay in the vicinity of that.
Yes.
And so that world expands and grows.
I think that's a great idea. The question is, how much would they have to buy it off of Warner Television? Okay, Cass Lou.
Can't do that much because TV One.
But remember, Warner owns Whitley's Voice, so it wouldn't be cheap.
True.
Cass Lou Venture says independent ventures and circling the finance within owned communities. Think who spends the most economically, and we are more collectively. Economic power redirected. JJ Mars says part of the problem was that too many Black should have been more careful about integration. True, that's a whole other conversation subject. Hoggetchi says Ebony Magazine and Black Enterprise Magazine.
They're not even Black owned anymore.
There you go.
Yeah.
Cass Lou, definitely need more collaborations within the communities and support each other. April said yes. Tyler Perry came up in the conversation. Hoghead says Terrence Howard says 1 × 1 = 2. LOL. JJ Mars says many quality BET shows had poor ratings, like Lead Story.
Yeah.
And you know what though? Here's the
Go
one
ahead.
part that they don't tell you though about the rating systems, JJ. And I agree with what you're saying, is that BET for a long time was only in a certain, it had a smaller number of markets that it was
Yep.
in. And so the amount of markets that you're in also affects your ratings. Like NBC will have high ratings because they're in just about every market. But if you look at
Right.
TV1 doesn't have the kind of ratings it should because it's not in every market. And so at that time, particularly in the early 80s and early 90s, you had whole communities, whole swaths of the country that didn't get BET as part of their cable offerings. And so people who would have rather been exposed to that didn't have the opportunity to watch because they didn't have access to it.
Can I add to that, to this as well, in terms
Sure.
of poor ratings? All we have to do is look at, there was a show that was excellent that was on BET. And if you ask me, it was misplaced. It should have been on Comedy Central or something. The Rundown with Robin Thede. That
Yes.
show was
Yes.
amazing, but they did not renew it. It was on for one season. Was it one or two? I think it was
It's
just
like
one season. It was on for one season. It was too, and my podcast partner Kevin and I talk about this all the time. We said it was way too sophisticated for the BET audience. If that means that I'm offending BET audience, I don't care. I think because when we look at some of the other things that are on there, highly rated. Now, of course, there could be some shenanigans going on with that, but the point is, when you have something that's funny, smart, intelligent, just all around, because she wrote for the Daily Show, so
right.
of course she
People
was going to
forget
be
you
on
get
point.
at the elementary school because Robin Thede's relationship with Quinta Brunson, and they did the Black Lady sketch show.
Exactly. So when BET does attempt to put on some of these things, they either mess it up or the viewers don't watch, because the typical BET audience, from my own recollection, is not the same audience that watches like a Comedy Central, that watches the Daily Show, or any of those other what is it, last week tonight, this week tonight, on HBO or on Max. That's not that same audience. So that's what Robin Thede was attempting to do on BET, and it didn't work. So
and BET has to stop catering to 18 to 34-year-olds, because if
Right.
your advertisers are catering to people who are 35 to 60, but your TV show, you're going to have a disconnect. Why would I watch BET when everything that they talk about is you have 42-year-old adults acting like they're still in high school on your TV shows? And that's just not what middle-aged life is about.
All right, let's go. And let's close it up. This one, as Gigi Mar said, you mentioned her look like pimp called Sweetback from Boondocks.
Sure did.
Yes.
And Jen goes, that wig though. And Hug gets just Terrence Howard looks like Florence, George Jefferson's maid. That's
Oh,
wrong.
Marla Gibbs is still alive in her late 90s and looking fabulous.
I love Marla Gibbs. Yes.
That's wrong. Marla, that was George's mother. Or no.
No, that was a maid.
No, that was the maid. Florence was the maid.
You don't forget Mother Jefferson, because Mother Jefferson, oh my God, that was a whole character in and of itself.
Yes.
All right. Well, let's get into some more fun. So I know this is going to be fun because Aisha is very passionate about this. Arizona reinstates 160 years ago reinstates. Go ahead, ladies, on this one.
160 years ago is about as old as the Emancipation Proclamation. Okay, so when people want to talk about things not being so long ago, and yes, this bothers me because Republicans can't seem to get their messaging together on this one. And I kind of like that. On one hand, they're like, oh, yeah, we got rid of Roe v. Wade. What? Wait a second. They're doing what now? What now? And this is that series of unintended consequences. What Arizona basically did was, it is literally a total abortion ban with the exception of the life of the mother. But then they don't clarify what constitutes an emergency enough for a woman's life to give her proper reproductive care. So this also means that children, young girls who are molested, raped, incest, and are being forced to carry babies, a 10-year-old is going to be forced to carry a baby to term after being raped in Arizona. And the thing that makes it even more difficult, it's not just that there's this 1864 abortion ban law that went into place. Arizona has, with the introduction last week of the issue in Florida, Arizona has now made it completely possible that this entire swath of the country, if you live there, there is no access to proper reproductive care in any of the states, 3 states to your left, 3 states to your right, 3 states to the north and south. There's nowhere to go. The entire South has pretty much installed some form of abortion ban, and then made it difficult for women to be able to go to neighboring counties, neighboring states. And the sad part is, I saw someone on the news say, well, you know what, if you don't want, if you're an Arizona resident and you need to have an abortion and it's illegal here, well, why don't you just go somewhere else? The fact that you think someone has the money to pick up and buy a bus ticket, plane ticket to fly to a place, plus mind they have to pay for a hotel because it's not their home. They might not know anybody else there. Pay for the procedure, pay for extra time to recover in a hotel before they then travel home, and as if they have the time off work to be able to do it and don't have to care for children. It's not that simple. And we have to get out. We have to pull this narrative back from people, because on the right, they won't say it, but they view abortion, they think that most people are getting abortions because it is their backup to failed birth control. And that is just not true. That actually happens to be very few of the cases. More of the cases have a lot to do with things like rape, incest, molestation, complications in birth, and even the things, I think in men's understanding too of women's bodies and how they function when they make these laws is also another problem. Because guess what? When you go into labor, or you have a miscarriage, those are both considered spontaneous abortion. Abortion literally means the act of no longer being pregnant, your body expelling a pregnancy. So if you're going to ban abortion, then you might as well ban childbirth either, because that is actually called a spontaneous abortion.
Anything you want to add, Dr. Tachi?
No, it's I do. So if you look at this and go back to the history of this 1864, it seems like, because we think about this in modern terms, so 1864 seems foreign to talk about this. But it actually, midwives were the ones who performed these procedures before, when it needed to be done. So this 1864 ban was enacted by male physicians, white male physicians, so that they could control obstetric care, basically. So there was this kind of saltiness towards the fact that midwives who were, women, were doing this. So in order to stop that, and so that they could control obstetric care, they lobbied and enacted this ban. That's part of the story, but it comes out of an agenda once again. So this whole thing is never about the health of the woman. It's never about women's reproductive health. It's never about women's choice. It's always about an agenda that has been enacted by others to suit them. And then, part of this also came out of a xenophobia as well, to be able to control the narrative there. So there's a lot that I think people don't understand or know that, and we really all have to research and understand and know when it comes to that, to this. Most of this is not because of wanting women to be safe and not regret and all of this. Most of this is either political or religious agenda or money agenda.
And it's also about numbers too, because remember, it's not the babies that they're concerned about being aborted are not Black and brown babies. They try to say that they don't care. They're concerned about white babies being aborted because we know that the population shift in the US is coming. That's the first thing. Two, the GOP is having a difficult time swaying people to their side to grow their political parties. So the only way that they can grow them is through childbirth. And then the other thing too is that Black women and Latino women, but Black women particularly have the highest infant mortality rate, but also are more likely to die in childbirth. And this right here is a death sentence for a lot of Black women. And it is going to lead to it's going to lead to some further overreaching guidelines and rules, because this might just be in Arizona today, but if it left to this one particular political party that says they want to do it for the whole country, after they said they wanted to just go back to the states, you can be as safe as I feel in Connecticut, and that we have codified it into our law, and all the surrounding states have. If it becomes a federal law, none of us anywhere have protection over our own bodies or our own reproductive health. And women's reproductive health goes a whole lot further than just childbirth. Okay.
Right.
There are the things that happen pre-childbirth, but then menopause is another part of women's reproductive health and having to navigate that as well. And people tend to forget. They just focus on those childbearing years. And honestly, it is getting more difficult with the additives and things that we put in our food and in our environment. Women are having much more difficult times getting pregnant and staying pregnant. Because the other thing is that once you get pregnant, the other challenge then comes sustaining that pregnancy and keeping that pregnancy. And anything can happen. And I say this from someone who had a difficult pregnancy. When they're ready to come out, they're ready to come out. It's not always, oh, let me check. That's that 40-week deadline. I'm coming out this day. They can come at 30 weeks. And at what point, what are you supposed to do? Pretend like it doesn't happen? And then put the child and the mother who the mother wants the child, you put them in jeopardy. And so this right here, like Dr. Tachi says, has a lot to do with people not understanding the wide spectrum that is women's healthcare and reproductive care.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to add, Dr. Tachi, before we move on?
At 100% agree. All of this comes out of this extreme misogyny. When we ask people, why do you despise Black people so much? What has been done? It's the same thing. Why do you despise women so much? What has been done? Because this is very definitely anti-woman. And the thing is, here's the thing. Many people who are fighting this, we keep saying, oh, it's men or it's white men. No, because the easiest way to enact some of these things is to get the oppressed to do it for you. So every oppressor has the oppressed as collaborators. There are so many women that are in on this. It's terrible. So it's a bigger problem, I think, than what we understand, because it's also narrative that has been fed and that we've accepted. And the very ones that you think would be in favor of protecting reproductive rights and all sorts of women's health rights are sometimes the very ones fighting the hardest against it. So
right. And that goes to say a lot, because the same people who are fighting against that, who you think would be offended, are also the same people who are upholding white supremacy when it doesn't include them as women. If you really want to get into the research of it, look at the history of the WKKK, the white,
yes,
the woman Ku Klux Klan, and realizing that they weren't let into the regular KKK with the men because they were women. So they had to form their offshoot so that they could uphold white supremacy that was being dictated by a patriarchy that was holding them down and suppressing them down. And so the only power that they could feel was to do it to other people. And that is a perfect lesson in terms of how people don't vote in their best interest. I don't understand how there are women at this point, particularly white women, who are still voting for the Republican Party. They have shown who they are. They do not have the best interests of any women in mind. If you sit there, your problem is DEI. Let's remember those DEI funds, the first people standing in line to get them, the first people who get them are white women. So
it's not
DEI,
us.
right? Because DEI includes you too.
Right. See, I think people think diversity and inclusion initiatives
Brown and
equals black. No,
brown, black,
no,
and gay. Mm-hmm.
no, not at all.
And
Let's
so
move on.
This is something we got to watch because this isn't the end of it.
Well, like the only thing I'll add on this is this seems like a sliding slope to other things to turn back to 160 years ago.
The only good thing that's coming out of this is that this has people so outraged on both sides.
Yes.
That and that Arizona is now they've got the signatures to put it to a ballot initiative. These states doing these things, they're dumb. I'm gonna tell you why they're dumb. Because it's dumb to do it in an election year when all your seats are up and you have to put something. It's a presidential election year, all your federal seats are up, and you can put ballot initiatives on. You know the turnout's going to be higher because it's a presidential year, so you have more people who are going to vote for those ballot initiatives. If they were smart and they wanted to do this, they should have done this back in 2022, and they might have had their little red wave. But right now, it's not going to be a trickle; it's going to be a red drought.
All right,
they keep doing this
exactly.
Way.
All right, let's move on to the next conversation piece. 45's New York criminal trial begins soon, Aisha. You've been wanting to talk about him since the beginning. You're linking everything to him. Now you get your chance. Go ahead.
I'm so excited. It's just jury selection. There still is another 36 hours or so where he could get ultimate Hail Mary. But this week, I mean, that judge was blocking shots like he was Brittany Griner on the court, because he was just like, no, I wanted to, no. So now he's got to go and he's got to face the music. He's got to be in court every day of the criminal trial, every day, even when they're just doing the jury selection, which gives this is prime time for the Democrats to show a split screen. Joe Biden be out there just doing stuff for people while this man is busy sitting in court. And just because think about it, if he's sitting in court, and they go to court 4 days a week, so the only day that he will not have to be in court is Wednesday. And they anticipate that this jury selection can take 3 weeks. But looking at the list of questions that they ask, this actually could go about 4 or 5 weeks, depending on how people respond. But one of the things that really surprises me isn't just who they've shown so far that's on the list. It's the one person I did not expect to be on that witness list, and that is Hope Hicks. And Hope Hicks is not testifying for the defense. She's testifying for the prosecution. So Hope Hicks, Donald Trump can't say that he doesn't know her. He can't say that they weren't that close. Okay? She's going to be able to testify in ways that she didn't for the January 6th hearings and speak to the credibility of people like Cassidy Hutchinson and things like that, but also to Michael Cohen's credibility. And, this is the problem you have with men like Donald Trump. You assume that because the woman's in the room, she can't hear or isn't paying attention to everything that's going on and recording it in her memory. Hope Hicks knows a lot of stuff. She was in the room for a lot of the things. So if people are concerned about the Michael Cohen overexposure or Stormy Daniels overexposure, and no, the one you need to watch is Hope Hicks, because I have a feeling that she's not going to be a hostile witness because, look, she's not going to jail for anybody. Put it that way.
Dr. Tachi?
This is a gift. This trial is a gift. And I'm hoping that the other side takes this gift and does what they need to do with it. This whole time that he's going to be tied up, as Aisha said, that is a perfect time for Biden to be out there to do what he needs to do. And here's the other thing. Democrats need to stop being so nice. Every time something happens, there's never a hit back, and we can all say that's counterproductive. But maybe it's just the I want to throw rocks in me that is doing that.
Right.
But this is, maybe it's that. But it's there's been too much of a turn the other cheekness when it comes to this thing. And I remember this joke with, I can't remember which comedian told it. And he said, they always want people to turn the other cheek. And he said, but best believe when I come back around, my hand's going to be out when I come out from that slap. And that's what I want for Democrats to do. You've got to start hitting back. And I'm not saying hit back in a way that's unproductive or counterproductive to the interest, but hit back in a way so that they know you're not going to, because every time it feels like all there is discussion around these things,
right.
Whereas on the GOP takes action.
Right.
We need to stop with the discussion, with the conferences, with a conjecture, and do something. So I hope this span of time is the time where people start doing something.
And I agree with Dr. Tachi. The best campaigner that Joe Biden has right now for him is Donald Trump, because all he has to do, one of the morning shows this morning went back and replayed that just a clip of that press conference where he was talking about injecting bleach and shining a light inside the body and all of that. And I listened to it. I'm like, oh my God, this man is so stupid. Just so stupid. All they have to do is get those clips, keep running those ads while he's in jail, and just have Joe Biden say at the end, I'm Joe Biden and I approve this message.
Exactly.
Just keep running those, because between that and then between seeing him in the courtroom, people are going to be like.
I'm going to bring a point, though, and we're showing an article for those who are listening on replay, but I'm showing an article. The article says 45's New York criminal trial begins soon. But will the public care?
Yes. And here's the reason I'm going to tell you why. Because the same people who were clutching their pearls about Bill Clinton have sex in the Oval Office are the same ones who are not disgusted about Donald Trump doing the same thing to get to the Oval Office. If this didn't have a sex component to it and a porn star component to it and money, the changing hands of money and stuff,
I don't think it would be. Aisha, he's got a lot of supporters that will not care about this.
America has this sickening interdependence with reality TV. I don't think it's that they're going to care, or is it going to change their vote? Will the focus on it, and will it's going to change our news cycle for a while, best believe, because they will be able to have audio. I think if it was going to be televised, I think it would, like we talked at the beginning, have that kind of OJ Simpson impact. I don't think that his people are going to care, but I think the thought that they're not going to care is very different from the moment that we're in. We've never had a president put on trial before, ever. Nixon got hearings. Nixon was the only reason we didn't have any Nixon trial was because Nixon resigned. He resigned, right? But this, even with Bill Clinton, there was no trial. He was just impeached. But also, too, I don't want you to forget. Remember the impeachment of Donald Trump. Both impeachments were high ratings things for our news media. Okay, even Fox did well on that, and they were showing those things. So I don't think it's so much that people care it's going to switch their vote. I think it's the salaciousness of it. And remember, we don't know any of the deep evidence that they have. You know, I mean, for all we know, somebody could have an audio tape of Donald Trump talking about some things that he likes being done. And that's going to be something that's going to, again, news ratings. It's all about the ratings. And guess what? For someone who relies on ratings, you know, he's going to love it.
All right. Let's move on. And just to comment here, Caslu says great points of view. Regina says a lot of Haley supporters said they would have not voted for 45 if he's a convicted felon. Maybe they will vote for Bobo RFK Jr. instead. Trust that 45 will not beat all 34 indictments.
None.
Okay. And Regina says, before we go on to the next conversation, I predict Karen McDougal's story is going to end up to be much more this summer.
Yeah. And she's right, because remember, Karen McDougal didn't just have a sexual relationship with him. She claims that they were boyfriend, girlfriend while he was married, that they had an actual full-fledged romantic, emotional, and physical affair. And we never heard the details of that. The salacious part about the porn star you expect, but never him having an emotional attachment to a woman while his wife was having the baby.
Something tells me that this isn't going to really impact impact 45 in a bad way. I don't think
it's going to impact him, but it will change our news cycle. It'll change how we consume our media again.
All right. Well,
can I say something really quickly? I think also that the will people care? Yes, because there's more at stake here than there was with anybody else, and any other president that had. There's more at stake here, and that's the loss of democracy. And the good thing is that his minions have already started this work, like you see in Arizona and all these other places. So we're seeing firsthand the people that align with him and the people that are his minions, the work that he's doing. The fact for some people that this could be widespread dictatorship if he's able to get in office again, I think that's enough to make people care and to watch and hope that something comes out of this.
And just really quick to piggyback on that too, I think that we've forgotten in this moment how obsessed people were with the blue dress and the cigar with Bill Clinton.
Yes.
People were obsessed with finding that blue dress. Remember, because none of that stuff was like on video. Linda Tripp had all of the recordings. People were like so interested in finding out, oh my God, he said that. Here's another example of people being totally obsessed in the media and doesn't make a difference. Mark Sanford. When Mark Sanford left South Carolina without telling anyone to go visit his mistress in Argentina, and people thought he was moving, the only thing that took that, once it became national news, the only thing that took that off the national landscape of the news and the salaciousness of it from both sides was that Michael Jackson died. So I think that we're forgetting the impact these political figures that we've turned our celebrities into political figures. I don't think the way that you've done in other countries.
All right, move on. Speaking about 45's opponent, states warned that Biden could miss the ballot. Wow. Okay,
let me tell you that this is ballot gerrymandering. If they can't gerrymander the districts, they're trying to gerrymander the ballots. Here's the problem. Alabama in particular is saying that Joe Biden might not be able to be on the ballot in November because they have a ballot deadline. And I believe their deadline is August 15th. Well, the reason that they're saying this is because in order to put someone officially on a ballot, on a presidential ballot, the national party has to have signed over and certified that this is our nominee. And here's the paperwork, file it, put them on the ballot. Most of the time, the certificate is not done until after the party's convention. The Democratic convention is 4 days after this deadline. But the other flip side of that too is that if I'm not mistaken, I didn't really have to check, but I believe, isn't the Republican convention after the Democrats convention, which means that wouldn't that mean that Trump wasn't eligible to be put on that ballot either? If they don't do their certification at the same time at the convention. So right now, this right here feels like tit for tat. If so Colorado tried to take him off the ballot, so we're going to do this and we're going to make this and we're doing this. And mind you, they've done it in one of the swing states, which is North Carolina is trying to do it. Ohio's trying to do it. You got 2 swing states trying to do this. And Alabama actually realized that it might not be a total swing state, but it realized that it's about to shift politically because of what happened with IVF.
Exactly. It's this is retaliatory, nothing more. These people are not that bright to come up with something. I'm like, can you at least make it look? But it's clear retaliation. This is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with kindergartners who, well, you took my truck, so I'm taking yours now.
Right.
Especially with the fact that, and I think you're correct, the GOP convention is after. So then what's the issue? Because then I think I remember reading that they've made concessions for Republicans before when this has happened. So it's an issue, but it's a non-issue because it's clear. It's clear discrimination if you do this.
And the thing is if they put it in their law that it's 82, such an arbitrary number, 82 days before the election, you have to turn the certification in. Well, why can't you just change the day? Why can't you just change that? It's not like 82 has any significance. Change the number. That's basically all you have to do is change the number. Not only that, but remember that elections, and they have to do this by state because the elections are run by the state. The governor could do that by executive order. Just for that particular election.
Exactly.
So Regina says Republican convention is on July 15th, 2024 in America. And then JG Marr says you have to question yourself, what is democracy for Black Americans? And then coming back, JG Marr says, have we really enjoyed it or even experienced it? I think that would make a good show topic. What is democracy for Black Americans? JG Marr, we're gonna have a show about that. Invite some people and have a roundtable conversation about that. I think it'd be a really good conversation topic.
It's like that. Really quickly, it's like the poem by Frederick Douglass, "What to the slave is the 4th of July."
Right.
Nothing. It's not my independence.
It's Thursday.
Right.
Okay. All right. Last conversation topic. Going back to the media. NPR is in turmoil after it's accused of liberal bias.
So, NPR gets a lot of their money from federal government. It gets a lot of money from and then they all have their own PBS channels and things like that where NPR does programming, et cetera, et cetera. NPR gets a lot of its money from public funding. And so now the same people who are complaining about everything else are like, oh, well, NPR, it's slanted towards liberals. No, the problem is NPR is reporting the truth. If there's any media outlet that is least biased in any direction in this country, it is NPR. NPR, you can rely on them to give you straight shot. They don't do the whole pundit thing. They're not down with the punditry. They will report a story start to finish, give the historical context, cite references, and they don't just focus on the news. Because remember, NPR talks about music. They have that show that analyzes jazz. I like. They've got a lot of different programs. So to say it's liberal bias, you don't mean liberal bias. What you mean is their content is for people who want to open their eyes, uplift themselves, and educate themselves. It's educational bias, I think, is what they should be saying, because NPR, there are things that I learn about that you don't hear in the mainstream media that I only hear on NPR.
Absolutely. Let's listen. NPR, for somebody to say that, first of all, that man has never listened to NPR a day in his life. NPR has news every hour on the hour, and it is pure facts. There's no conjecture. There's no opinion. They interview people that are connected, and that's it. It is pure facts. And they have a lot of other, as Aisha said, a lot of other shows. I listen. My Saturday mornings are NPR, so I'm listening to Wait, Don't Tell Me, the puzzle show. I'm listening to things like The Splendid Table about food. I'm listening to Rick Steves Travel. All those types of things that elevate the consciousness of the public and just inform as well as entertain, right? So news is just one part of what they do. But here's the thing. And I know that part of, because it's like a quasi-governmental, because they get some money from the federal government. What they need to do is say, okay, then that's fine. If you have such a problem, we don't need it anymore. Because if they sat there, one of their biggest things that could be a biggest moneymaker is Tiny Desk concerts. Have you all ever seen the Tiny Desk concert?
Yeah.
They have lots of great artists, major artists, as well as some independent artists that come on around that tiny desk in one of their rooms up in the building in DC, and they have concerts there. If they monetize that, they would not need federal government. So I think what they need to start doing is start looking at, okay, what are some of the things that we could actually monetize? And because NPR is like PBS, and they've been thinking such like public television or public radio for the longest time, there now needs to be a switch, because when you have these changes in regime, that's what happens. Everybody starts to go after all these things. So all right, let's monetize some of these other things that will do well for you. I promise you, if they monetize Tiny Desk concerts, they wouldn't need the government. They wouldn't need.
And I think that people forget that NPR also is the information that you get. Particularly, because I'm looking at a comment. I'm looking at a comment that we have here. 30 years ago, NPR was run a whole lot different than it is now. And even still, parts of it are run by your particular state or region. So for example, like I know that Minnesota, for example, has their own NPR,
Minnesota Public Radio,
right, that they run, and they actually have a whole Prince documentary thing that they run and they focus on. So it's different. So stories that you would think that you would see, that everybody's seeing, not everybody's seeing it. Like I know in the South for a long time, people talked about how NPR was very selective there in terms of the programming that they would show and that they wouldn't show. So the public aspect of it gets to control what comes out of it. And I think what you're saying about the tiny desks and then being able to finance some of them, financing this thing themselves, is how they get out of having a state try to propagandize the material and the content that they put out, because it is public radio.
All right. So 2 comments here. Regina says, I do not like NPR. They aren't that liberal. They refused to cover Jerry Brown in 1992 and sucked up the Clinton campaign. They also had GE as underwriters and refused to discuss the PCB contamination. And she says, by the way, I'm an environmentalist. They are not. I do like the Tiny Desk concerts, though, but I can catch them on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
I think the uproar is because it's actually a gentleman, a senior business editor, who wrote this article saying NPR ain't that. I think that's where the real uproar is coming from. Yeah, because it's from someone on the inside.
Yeah. And I think that's they're being accused of it, but this. To me, here's the perspective I took from the person that wrote the article and the person making the charges, is that he really wants to just he's like trying to launch his new job at Fox News. That's
exactly.
That's the feeling I got. I'm like, okay, he's thinking about his next job.
Because think about it. How often do you see people that have this, unless something is really wrong internally, that have some sort of scathing things to say about a former employer, unless they're trying to position themselves for something. This is a clear, I'm positioning myself for something else move. Because why then take NPR down with it? Now, that's not to say NPR is perfect. Not saying that at all, but it just doesn't make sense. And of course, if you are not, quote, liberal, and I'm not saying NPR is liberal, not at all. They in fact, they're pretty neutral in my opinion, but in the way they report anyway. But of course, it's going to seem to you, if they're not reporting things the way you want, with more of a conservative slant, of course, they're going to be too liberal to you. So what you're saying is nonsense.
And I'm wondering what the grift is. I always have to ask, when someone has spent their whole, their career reporting on. Clearly, he was happy at NPR for a long time, and now all of a sudden he's got issues. What's the grift? It's kind of like, you see all these we see all these Black Republicans now. It's like they built all these careers working with Black people to do something to flip. Like Clarence Thomas, all of a sudden, what's the grift? The grift is that he decided he can't make money any other way, and so this is how he's going to do it. It's about the money. I want to know what the grift is here with this man, because he was at NPR for a while.
Yes, it's not like he's only working
from what he's still there, isn't he?
Yes,
he's still there. For now.
Well, look, as of Friday, he's still there.
Yes.
He might not have a job come Monday morning.
Dr. Tachi, media, both of you, media is your lanes. Anything else you want to say about this? Because this is quite interesting for this to come up from a longtime inside person on, and I know the way NPR is, they have a gentleman who's a media reporter named David Folkenflake. I have a feeling, and when he reports, he is very, this in my lens, very neutral. So it'll be very interesting to see what report, because if they even comment on it in any way on their platform.
If this came out of a slew of other people alleging the same thing, I would give it more weight. This is one individual. And again, I haven't done enough research to know if this has been levied before by people from the outside, so I can't speak. But to me, it seems like a dangling participle, a lone actor talking about this. So I'm not going to put very much weight on what you say, because I'm not hearing other people. I've not heard the same thing in the past. Even in media, you hear you hear grumblings of little things. I've never heard anything. Never heard anything. So now you come out and say this is the thing, and you expect us to believe you? Yeah, in your experience. So I guess your experience is valid, but I haven't heard other people saying the same thing. And one thing we always look for, we always teach people, right, to look for agreement when it comes to things in these stories. You're the only one. So until more people come out and say something, I not that I don't believe you, but I don't believe you.
And I'm just wondering if next week we're going to hear that NPR had some layoffs, as a lot of newsrooms have been having. And this is his. And
they've gone through their share.
And he already got his pink slip.
Okay. All right. Well, that is it, ladies. Wonderful job as per usual. Want to say thank you. A special big thanks to Dr. Tachi for coming. I was going to say being here. I wouldn't say filling in, because you're always you always have a pseudo seat on the platform, because I know you drop in all the time. So I will say Lala will be back next week. This is where you can get a hold of her. Instagram at Living the Lala, TikTok and YouTube, Living the Lala Life, and Facebook, Living the Lala Life. Dr. Tachi, how can people, I think the best way people get a hold of you is probably just Instagram, isn't it?
Yeah, IG is my jam for some reason. So you can reach me on Instagram at Dr._Tachi. I'm going to encourage all of you to watch IndieSoup Media. We have some amazing programs on there. So there you go, IndieSoupMedia.tv. You can watch on the website. You can also watch on our Facebook, Twitch, our YouTube channel, of course. And you can, if you have a Roku device, go ahead and download the IndieSoup app. You can download it there and you can watch it right on your TV. So no excuses. And we, like I said, we go from 4:00 Monday through Thursday, and on Fridays from 6 p.m. And we got great stuff. So watch.
Yeah, I'm on it. So that's the
Dr.
reason
Vibe is on there.
And I sit back and watch myself on Roku. I go, wow, it's actually the first time I've ever watched myself on TV. First time. All right. Wow. Aisha K, how can people check you out?
Instagram too. That's probably the best way. I am on X right now, mostly because of the political season. Then I'll be chilling from there. And Discord, definitely join the Discord group.
Fantastic. All right, myself, here are all the places you can get a hold of me. Website, the DR, VIBESHOW.com, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn, the space, DR period space, VIBE space SHOW, Instagram at the DR, VIBESHOW, X/Twitter, because one of my interns said you put X, but a lot of people still not. So X/Twitter at DR, VIBESHOW, and email DR period VIBE at the DR, VIBESHOW.com. All right, that is it. We are signing off. As always, live your life as a dream. If you can dream it, you can make it. Sometimes you have to get small to get stronger. Block assumptions, then aim bigger, aim better, aim higher, aim wider. Love, faith, and respect. And remember to give yourselves grace, and don't just manage your time, manage your energy. God bless. Peace be well. Keep the faith. Walk good, and we'll catch you soon.